Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next talk from the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Gerald Auger. Today, Dr. Gerald Auger will be talking about practical cybersecurity control auditing from preparation to reporting. If you're not familiar with Jerry, he is the founder of the Simply Cyber community, and we thank him very, very much for all of his contributions to the community. Enjoy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Just as a quick aside, I do want to say thank you to Wild West Hackin Fest and for this entire community to put this event on. It's phenomenal. Also, a shout out to Zach Hill, who introduced me. Now, he was behind the curtain. What you may not know is Zach Hill, besides just announcing people, is actually quite an impactful individual in our cybersecurity community with IT career questions and helping tens of thousands of people. So if you would, for me, please, let's recognize Zach for a second. Yeah. It's true, he's done amazing things. All right, good afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Jerry or Gerald or Jerry Guy, depending on when you catch me. And I love cybersecurity. I'm ultra passionate about it. I've worked in the field for 20 years plus, and mostly in the GRC space. I was a software developer before. My code got audited for security. It failed. I got pissed, and then I was going to spite the auditors, and then I joined their team, basically. So the reason I want to do this talk is because I've done so many audits against FISMA and against HIPAA and all these other things. And there is really a pretty fluid process that you can use. It's repeatable. It's probably not that much different from pen testing, because once you do it a couple times, there's a flow. There's basically an onboarding or kind of a prep part. There's the execution, then there's delivery. And if you crush it, right, using this framework or this methodology, you'll just look more professional. You get better quality results. Now, one of the things I want to say is this particular talk is very versatile on how you can use this information, right? So let's say that you're responsible for cybersecurity, or you're dual-hatted and you're responsible for IT and cyber at your business, and you really don't have a cyber program in any way. Even though it's audit, right? You got to remember, you can use this technique to do an assessment, right? Which will allow you to baseline and understand what your current security posture is in a standard, repeatable way, using a framework that kind of gives you a comprehensive approach. And then you can work with IT, work with HR, work with whomever, stakeholders, to get your posture better. And then you can rinse and repeat this process again. So that's why it's important to have this repeatable process versus just flinging things against the wall and seeing what happens. That's one way internally. You could also, getting back to Evan's talk, if you were here a few minutes ago about leveling up and being a boss, if you want to get those practical skills, home labs are great, but it's difficult to demonstrate impact and value and learn some of the real life challenges that you may not encounter in a home lab. And it's no disrespect to the home lab, it's definitely awesome. But you can use this process to go to your church or local community or nonprofit and say, hey, listen, I've got this, I want to help you with cybersecurity. I'm going to help you by doing an assessment, find out where your real big problems are, and get you sorted out, which will allow you to execute this audit. And if you don't have a method, it's going to be very difficult for you to sell, for lack of a better term, that you can do that work, okay? So that's what I'm trying to do with this particular talk. And then just for you to improve yourself if you are doing audits. We're gonna go through CIS Control 18. I put an asterisk here because this talk isn't about let's deep dive CIS Controls 18. Of all the different control frameworks, and I mean, there's not that many, but for me, CIS 18 is it's got training wheels on it. It's like a bicycle with training wheels. It's very easy to comprehend. You're all very intelligent people. I'm not saying that you can't comprehend the more complicated ones, but when you try to basically think, I know you've got a 15-month-old, I have children. If you have children, imagine your kid comes out and the first thing you try to feed him is a Big Mac, right? That's just not gonna work, right? Maybe give him some formula or something, get him weaned up. So That's why I want to start with CIS Control 18. It's robust enough to make you get good value for what you're doing. It's easy to understand by both you and the person you're trying to give this work to. And it's actually maturable. But this is not a deep dive in CIS Control 18. I gave this talk once before and someone was pissed about that, so I wanted to qualify that, okay? We're going to go through the 3 phases. It's very standard: pre, during, and post. Each phase has its merits. And there's a couple pro tips that I'm gonna lean into to let you know that you should basically do so you don't have to make mistakes. Now, why would you want to do all of this, okay? As I said, CIS Control 18, most businesses, if they're not doing cybersecurity or they don't have resources for cybersecurity, they're not gonna have resources to go buck wild and have you do all the things. They're not gonna hire people. So this is a great one, especially if you work at a cash-strapped type organization, small business, you're trying to make $1 out of 15 cents, right? This is a good one to do. Obviously, with this framework, you're going to be able to identify immediately what the prioritized high impact areas are that you can get higher risk reduction value instead of guessing which ones to do. CIS 18's already done them for you with a little caveat. I push back on a little bit, but obviously the critical issues get addressed first, and then you can scale it. One of the cool things about CIS 18 is it's basically got 3 tiers to it. They're called implementation guidance. We'll get into it in a second. But they call it out for you. They've kind of done the work, and that's why it's awesome. Now, for you, and if you don't know me, I'm like a wicked big advocate of the CEO of you. You can love your job, you can love the people you work with, but at the end of the day, they'll lay you off if they didn't have a good Q3 or something, right? Which sucks. So what I want you to do is be able to level yourself up. This framework, this approach, it's very easy to digest, as I already mentioned, and you can easily communicate it, which makes you a boss, not trying to have to, translate to someone who's not working in tech. So let's look at the CIS Controls 18. Quick show of hands, because I want to understand this. Who here is familiar with CIS 18 and has looked at it and understands it? Okay, pretty good number, about maybe half, 2/3 of you. Good. This is what it looks like, right? I mean, I am an infographic junkie, okay? It's low-key a problem. And this is not really getting, this isn't getting the motor going, but that's okay, okay? CIS 18, it used to be CIS 20 when SANS had it, CIS has it now. There's 18 controls. The way that it's segmented is that control 1's the most important, down to control 18 being the least important. You'll note pen testing's at the bottom, Tyler. Okay. Quick note here, it's very difficult to see, I'm sure, in the back of the room, but the little gray box says safeguards. So for each of the controls, they break the controls up into safeguards. So for example, service provider management has 7 safeguards. So if you do these 7, these 7 things align. Now, you might be like, oh, I gotta do all these safeguards. That's not good. That's where we move into these implementation guidances. It's the green, orange, and blue thing. And basically what they're saying is, of the asset control one, there's 5 safeguards. Implementation guidance, you only have to do 2 of them. And then when you're ready to level up, implementation guidance 2, you do 4 out of the 5. And then you'll see that implementation guidance 3, the blue one, is basically all the safeguards, right? So this is how CIS has done the work for you to identify the highest value for the, basically bang for your buck on these controls. And you'll also notice, which is interesting, again, remember, this is for organizations that are basically kind of strapped for resources and human resources as well as money. Some of, we on? Yeah. Some of them have 0 safeguards, right? So again, I'm not going to dunk too hard on Tyler and the red team here, but you guys get your day in the sun in your movies and stuff, but GRC knows what's up. At the end of the day, we know the value here. Okay, but just the reality is it's not like there's one safeguard for everyone. So you kind of get this one for free if you're doing implementation guidance 1, because you can say we meet that control. All right. These are all standard ones. By the way, spoiler alert, or you'll learn this eventually if you're new to the industry. Whether it's Framework 1, NIST CSF, ISO, whatever, they're basically 80% all the same controls. It's all asset inventory, it's all patching, it's all risk and vulnerability scan. It's all the same, right? So the way that they've carved it up, you'll see asset inventory, they break it up into hardware, software, and data. the configurations of it, and then we get into like controls of access and identity management and stuff like that. They're all here. They're all quite familiar. That's why I'm not going to go through them because it is what it is. Again, just this is like bonus material for you guys. Control 14, security and awareness, skills training, definitely GRC's core wheelhouse. Implementation guidance, 8 of the 9 safeguards. So very, very high value from a risk reduction for your organization. So I feel like cyber awareness kind of gets like people don't see the actual value and impact, but it's like the people who are the ones clicking on things and plugging things in, and they're also the ones who see when bad happens, and that's why it's super important to do that. Okay. Now CIS has selected these implementation guidance ones for that those controls based on this. Basically, when you look at the top attacks, like getting malware into your environment, having ransomware detonated, which is just another version of malware, the way they say it, privileged account misuse and stuff, insider attacks, by doing implementation guidance 1, you're not going to get perfect, right? You're not going to block all the things, but you get this wicked high level, 78, 80% of basically reduction of those type of attacks coming into your environment. Again, it's really about bang for your buck or value for your assets. That's why you want to do them in that order. Okay, all I'm trying to do right now is make a compelling argument and sell you on why you're going to want to use this for your framework and how to approach it. So then when we do the audit, you can do the same audit, whether it's implementation guides 1, 2, or 3. The practice is the same, but this is the value for this. Also, you notice it will jump up quite significantly if you go to implementation guidance 3. But as all GRC professionals know, you can't eliminate all risk. Like you have to accept some risk, and that's what it is. But like even this one, by going up 3 levels and investing all that extra time and money, you get 4% more reduction. It's not, is it really worth it, right? Those are the questions that GRC people have to make. Okay, so let's do auditing now, okay? All right, just have a sip here. Okay. So when you're doing auditing or assessments, the prep is really, it's probably the most important part, right? Which a lot of things, right? Preparation breeds perfection or whatever it is. These are the steps we'll break down. Again, these slides, if you go to simplycyber.io/WWHF, you can pull these slides down. I'm sure the conference is going to make them available, so you don't have to necessarily write these down. But the first thing you're going to want to do is define the scope and boundary, right? Like most people think like, oh, I'll just do all the things. Well, maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you have a business like a mid-sized manufacturing company that has like 19 facilities and like 15 of them don't really matter. And not, when I say don't matter, like they're satellites. And you've got one data center, maybe a backup one or something like that. Like that's where you want to focus. You're trying to be efficient with your time and with your people and with your money. So you have to define what is in scope around systems and networks, and the physical locations also, right? Physical is a little, I argue, a little less important because a lot of those controls are centralized, like swipe badge access and fire extinguishers and stuff like that. What business processes will be in? Remember, we often, at least the way I think about it, is like there's people, process, and technology, and we're pretty good about remembering people and technology as things that we look at. But process is also vitally important. Are there gaps and weaknesses in the execution of a mission-critical process? If we're not looking at those things, it's basically a blind spot and a weakness that could become a problem for us in the long run. So make sure that you include those. And then which CIS controls. And really, this is more about, are you doing implementation guidance 1, implementation guidance 2 or 3? I strongly recommend if you're going to kick the tires on this thing for the first time, don't try to hit a home run. Just get on base, okay? Implementation guidance 1, you'll feel good afterwards. Next is the team. Now, if it's just you can, that was an easy one. You just check that off. If it's going to be a couple, like I've worked on larger projects with deployments and stuff, and you'll typically have 3 auditors, which is pretty common, like a senior auditor who's going to run point and be the interface to the business and to the clients and stuff, and then 2 auditors who are like doing the grinding and like interviewing candidates and stuff like that. Just make sure you have the right people and that they're either qualified or they understand what they're going to be doing. But it's important, right? A lot of people don't just think like, oh, like me and Carl will do it, no big deal. And then you get on site or you get down to the interviews and it's like a mess. I'll give you a horror story if you want when we get to this one about this, like not doing this well. Okay, then control collection document. Okay, so this is like kind of a pro tip. I know this is not the sexiest thing, okay? But you need to be able to capture and document like what you're going to be asking for and what, what controls you're going to be looking at, what evidence you're going to be looking at, how you're going to be collecting all of that stuff. I've got a graphic coming up to show you how to do that. But you have to be wicked organized. You are going to have so much evidence, so much details and data, and like they'll give you one thing and it's not right, so you got to get follow-up. They'll send you multiple things. You'll get something in the interview, then they'll send you a follow-up. If you're disorganized, it's going to be very bad. You're going to want to rip your hair out, actually. The next one is audit scripts. This might be the most important thing that you could take from this talk, okay? And I'll actually have a graphic coming up in a second. When you look at like what CIS 18's Control 1 Implementation Guidance 1 is looking for, or the Safeguard 1's looking for, you're going to test for that. Is the company, is your company, is the client, is the church doing this, yes or no? If you try to read that language, it's very verbose, it's very like technical in some capacity, and it doesn't really capture what you need to talk to that person about or what you need to get. So you need to develop these audit scripts. If you've taken my GRC Analyst Masterclass, I know many of you have in this thing, I make like a big presence about this. It's super important. And with AI, you kids have it so easy these days. I had to write my scripts uphill both ways when I was young. Yeah, yeah, in the snow, yeah. With my left hand, yeah. Yeah, and then evidence management. Again, this is more about the evidence inbound. This is more about kind of like what you're gonna be looking at, the evidence inbound. You're gonna have a ton of evidence. Okay, so now we've got what we're doing and how we're gonna be doing it. The next is information gathering. Basically anything that's documentation, you should try to get as much of it in advance as you can. Now, there's two reasons for this. Number one, it's easy to ask for. Hey, like especially if you can like just have a list, like hey, send me your network diagrams, policies, procedures, your current employee roster, org charts are another popular one. Just basically all the information. If you have like software inventory type list, those type of things. The reason is that should be already developed and they can just give it to you, right? Number one. Number two, and this is probably more important, if you can review it and get familiar with it before you go on site, you can ask much more specific questions, right? You're not asking questions like, do you have MFA here? You can ask more questions like, oh, I see you have like a hybrid, Azure Active Directory environment. How are you handling authentication into that space? Or, you guys are in a Aruba shop. How are you, it's much more tailored for you and the people you're talking to, whether it's, the IT team or HR or MSP or whatever. Those people that you're talking to, they realize that you've put in the effort and the work. It actually goes a long way towards building kind of like that relationship in the audit phase there. Instead of being like, oh, this jerk's coming here and like ruining my afternoon. I got to sit and talk to this guy. It's like, no. It's like I'm here, like we're working together. It's good. Plus with org charts, it's going to come up in a minute when you're actually scheduling the meetings and stuff. But a lot of times you need to speak to the right person. A lot of times I've scheduled interviews to do assessments and audits, and you sit down and you're like, all right, so tell me about this. And it's like, oh yeah, that's not my job. I don't do that anymore. And it's like, oh, cool, like cool. And you can't just be like, well then go grab the lady that does it, because that's not how it works, right? The lady's busy and you're gonna have to schedule it. It's a big pain in the ass. You don't wanna do that. So the org chart allows you to understand who's what, where, and how you can get with them. And then any prior audit reports are always good. This is, the pen testing world. I'm sure they ask for these things if possible. There's huge value in it. If you've done any prior assessments, maybe you just got hired, right? Because they're building the information security team. If anyone's done anything before this, it doesn't have to be CIS 18, just anything. Did you have a third party come in? Were you guys trying to go public so you got a SOC 2 report? Whatever it is, that is hugely valuable because it's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to kind of show you any of the bodies that may have already been discovered. It will also allow you to see if they've made any progress. Like if this is like 2 years old and like all the same problems are there, that's not a good sign for like how that particular organization takes security as a serious note or not. Okay, so this is classic GRC, right? Am I right? This is good. Spreadsheet, Excel, the powerhouse of GRC. So basically what this is this is basically an audit book, okay? So CIS Safeguard, you can download this from CIS. If you just Google like CIS 18 Excel, you'll get this, right? You can pull it down. Essentially, this is going to be your axiomatic workbook. So when you're going through your audit or your assessment, this is kind of your ground zero super tool. And you can see here, I've filtered on IG1. So these are only the controls that I care about, or the safeguards that I care about, right? 1.1, safeguard 1, 1.2, safeguard 2. So this is control 1, safeguard 1, safeguard 2, right? And this will all map back up to the CIS 18 and those IGs. The reason you want to do this, and I don't have it here, but imagine here and here and here, you'll actually have columns that'll be like who you spoke to, what evidence was collected, is the control in place or not? If it's not, what's the risk? Like, this becomes your basically work artifact. So when you, like, if you ever ask for this and you get this, you're like, oh yeah, like this is the crown jewels as far as like GRC people are concerned, right? So there's no reason to reinvent the wheel, okay? This is like the tool you should use, okay? Now, as I mentioned earlier, that audit script thing, the most important thing you can do or get from this particular talk, this is what IG1, CIS IG1 looks like, okay? I literally, it was with a NIST 853 control, but you're not gonna sit down with like the IT guy and be like, excuse me, do you establish and maintain an accurate, detailed, and up-to-date inventory of all enterprise assets with the potential to stop or process data? Like, but they're gonna stop listening to you like here, right? And they're gonna be like, what the fuck, what are you talking about? Like, right? It will absolutely destroy your credibility. And this is like step one. So like the rest of the assessment, the rest of that interview, the rest of every time, you've blown it. This person you're talking to is going to leave that meeting and immediately go tell everybody that works there that you are an idiot, right? And that sucks. I have literally seen, so just as a quick side story, I worked on a federal contract doing FISMA auditing, and our team member did zero prep work, right? He's just like, oh, this is fine, I got it. All right. And he sat down, and if you've ever read NIST publication, it's even way more verbose, right? And he sat down and asked them if like their like access control policies complied with executive orders, legislation, and regulation. And the person was like they just said like, what? Like, what does that even mean? Like, what does that mean? And the guy's like, and he just reread it to him, and then they just like reached an impasse, and then the person's like, yeah, I'm just gonna like head on out here, and it just detonated that thing. That guy actually got like taken off task because we don't fire people, and then he got fired. Like he got put on a PIP, and then he just got like put on a dolly and like rolled out the back door. You're like, you just chill here for a minute. I'll never forget it. So what I would say, what I recommend, that's why this to me is the most valuable thing you could possibly get out of this talk, is you need to convert this into something that is digestible and understandable to the person you're interviewing. And it's important to note that this isn't a one-to-one. It's not like you take the first sentence and translate it into common English that people can understand. What you need to do, and this is actually the skill of a GRC person, is you need to look at what that safeguard is actually trying to accomplish, right? This thing's basically, do you do asset inventory? Do you maintain it? Who accesses it, and when, and what? And what's in it? Does it include remote items, cloud items, right? So what I do is when you sit down, and I'm sitting down, I'm doing anti-siphon stuff. I got my safeguard 1.1. This is my script. When I said audit script, this is my script. It's sitting in front of me, and I say, okay, people in the room are Tom Pine and Lisa Loeb, right? From Don't Speak, right? Or Stay. What was the song? Do you remember? Oh my God, Lisa Loeb, 9 Stories. Stay. Yeah. Okay, drink, right? Yeah. You say. Oh my God, what a gem. One-hit wonder, but like seriously, she nailed it. Okay, so anyways, you're gonna know who you're gonna be speaking to because you've already prepped all these meetings and stuff. But this right here turns into, hey, can you walk me through the process of how a new asset's added to the inventory? You might even say that, like, hey, when you guys buy a new server, like, How does it get, like, how do you keep track of it, right? That's the question you want, because it's not axiomatic. What you're trying to get at is when new hardware comes in, how do you know about it, right? That's going to unlock a ton of stuff. And Tom Pine, the Lisa Loeb, the IT rep, knows what they do. Hey, we don't do anything. Like, we just have a company credit card and we go out and we Best Buy and we buy what we need. Okay, so we have no idea here. That's fine. Oh, another one. That's fine. Okay, just capture it. No problem. You don't judge them. You don't say like, oh my God, oh, Jesus, right? You don't do that. Go back to where you lose credibility. You don't want to do that, all right? You're here to help, all right? So then the next one. Okay, so what tools or systems are you guys using to maintain that? Is it like spreadsheets? Do you have like a ServiceNow module or something? Like, what are you doing? Again, responses go here, and then, how frequently are you touching this thing? Like, yeah, we have a spreadsheet, right? That's a common one, basically. Yeah, we have an Excel spreadsheet on a shared drive. It's awesome. Okay, like, how often are you guys touching it? Never. Okay, like, great. Or, like, they'll say, like, once a year or whatever. You just note it down, because later on, you just go look at the last touched file date on that, and it's like, or the last thing was entered in 2016. You're like, all right, there's a finding, okay? But this script right here, this is the thing that I had to write left-handed uphill both ways, okay? Of course, AI is now going to help us with this, clearly, all right? All right. So jump in Gen AI and say, hey, if I needed to validate the following control at an org, who would I need to interview, and what question should I ask? And then just copy and paste IG1, control 1, safeguard 1, for IG1 or whatever, drop it in here, and then boom, right? It's going to be like it's going to be like the IT person, the HR person, whatever persons, and then kind of the common questions. Now again, just like every talk here at Wild West Tech Invest probably said, you're not going to just copy and paste this, right? You're going to review it, go back to the actual control, make sure that what you're asking is actually going to encompass the totality of what that safeguard is, because you want to make sure you're getting it. Again, it's not like it's like friggin', the World Series and you bottom in the ninth or something, but like the last thing you want to do is like schedule a follow-up meeting because you forgot to ask a bunch of stuff. That makes you look like a rookie. You don't want to be like, oh, like I didn't do these things. And sometimes like it might take a couple weeks, a month before you finish analyzing all the data. And if you're like coming back to them, then you definitely look like a kind of a shit show. Or a drink. So, anyways, but it dumps out, can you walk me through this? Can you do this, right? So this is how you do it. This is like that audit script, super valuable. I actually call it the Rosetta Stone in my class, because it is literally magical to translate what you need into things that they can give you. All right, so now that we've got all that sorted out, huge piece of the plan, communication. Communication's vital. Okay, you don't just like kick in someone's door and be like, what's up, I'm here to audit, right? That doesn't work. You have to send out pre-audit notifications or pre-assessment. Most people think you're there to get them fired or get them in trouble, all right? You have to dispel that, right? Like right up front, or else they're not gonna be fully transparent with you. They're gonna lie to you, which is like not helpful either. It's just a pain in the ass. You don't want that, right? So send out pre-audit notifications. Hey, we're going to be coming. We're going to be talking to Lisa Loeb and Tom Pine about these controls. You can, if you want, you can send them we're going to be talking with you, KP, about asset inventory. And we're going to be talking to you, Tyler, about user access or, accounts or whatever. Like, don't make it mysterious. Like, oh, I'm coming on site to talk about things, right? All right. Once you get on, once the day arrives, whether it's on site, like you're going to like the church or the local place that you're helping the nonprofit, or you're doing it internally, you've already communicated, like, listen, the week of October 13th through October 20th, we're going to be doing this. The reason we're doing this is to help understand what's going on here, because we want to improve security. Here's a link to a story of a similar sized company that got breached. We don't want that. Let's go. Then when the actual day comes, you'll have a kickoff meeting. This is important. It doesn't have to be wicked long. You don't have to change the world. Just a little, 15, 20-minute meeting. Hey, what's up? You want the people who are going to be touched, or maybe that's not appropriate now, but the people who are involved, I reckon, in the assessment over the course of the few days or whatever it is, you want them there, and you want management there. The whole point of this, they know it. It's already on their schedule. This right here is to set expectations and to non-verbally communicate that management is supporting this endeavor and that you need to, help out, be part of the thing. If you do go long, I like to do it this way. It's a little aggressive, but I'm kind of psycho like that. At the end of the day, send a email notification out to either management, or if you want to do the whole org, not at all, but the people who are involved. Hey, today we actually talked to Lisa, KP, and Tyler. We talked about these controls. Tomorrow we're going to be doing this. It's just communication and keeping people up to speed on what's going on. It's super valuable, right? If you just show up and then 5 days later you disappear and there's no communication, it's not good. It doesn't help. I recommend doing it daily. You could do it every 2-3 days. And then finally, when you are done with the touching of the people, you want to oh, we lost the feed somehow. And why Wes Hackin Fest's YouTube channel is under review. Sorry guys. Before you complete kind of the activities, even some type of basic initial findings, right? Over the course of a couple days, say you find that they don't have MFA or they have no friggin' clue about any of their assets. People can sign up for cloud, AI anything and let it fly, right? That's a problem, right? So you want to say, hey, listen, we're wrapping up over the next couple weeks. We're going to take all the data, we're going to compile it, we're going to come back, and we're going to come up with where we are in a plan on where we can go to reasonably be more secure. And some real problems we found were X, Y, and Z. And by the way, this is another thing, I'll show this later. Make sure if you find something good, call it out, right? So many times people just want to call out what's wrong, and it sucks because the people who are busting their hump doing IT or doing whatever, all they get is crapped on, right? So if they're doing something good, hook them up, right? Let them look good to the auditor. Plus, when you come back next time to do the follow-up so you can measure the growth that they've had, they're going to be more friendly to you, because if all you're doing is crapping on them, they're going to be like, why would I tell you anything, right? Okay, so pre-audit success. This is that email, basically, this is what you want to say. This is the kickoff. Here's what we're doing. Here's who's involved, what we're doing, why we're doing it, etc. It's a simple email. Send that off. No big deal. Okay? Get the calendars booked. Now, I know it looks like a lot, but when you're trying to do back to back to back, and you're trying to touch all these different areas of the business, people are complicated, dude. I mean, it's we work remote now. When you're trying to coordinate meetings and stuff, it can be a pain. And you want to get on top of it, because if you get back to the part where you're talking to the wrong person in the meeting, and sometimes you have the right person, but they just don't do that phase anymore, you need to be able to get that meeting scheduled ahead of time. So definitely get all these scheduled. Plus, if someone's being a pain, they won't accept your calendar invite or they decline or whatever, you can then get ahead of it, get with management and get it sorted out, right? The last thing you want to do is your assessment of your audit to not work out because they're not playing along. And remember, you're there because the business it asks for this, right? You're not just trying to shoehorn it on them. Finally, as far as preparation, this is one of the practices that I recommend. This is not something you would typically learn in a textbook, but I like to break it out by control and then sub-break it out by the safeguard underneath for evidence collection. And I'll tell you why. You might think oh, if I ask for the access control policy, that actually addresses control 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? Again, I'm just back of the napkin saying this. And you might just say, well, that's fine, and put it there. What I want to do is I want to put it in, if it's control 6, safeguard 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, I'll actually put that policy in all 3 of those, copies of them. Because later on, a month later, I'm going to go okay, I'm looking at safeguard 6.3, and there's nothing in that folder because I put it in safeguard 6.1. That's a super pain in the butt, right? So again, I like to be very axiomatic and granular. This is what we're looking at. Here's all the evidence I collected for this. Let's analyze if it's in place, if it's partially in place, or if it's a gap. So this is another one of those best practices. Okay, so let's actually execute the audit. There's 3 ways that you can, audit or collect evidence or collect information on what's the current state of a control. And it's basically requesting documentation, which we already have covered pre-audit, interviewing people, which is a super popular one, and then testing, which is becoming even more popular as tools are becoming more available and access to resources. If you've heard of GRC engineering, this is where that's actually starting to grow, which is really nice. You can also do testing where it's how do you handle like when someone gets terminated with their access? It's like, oh, it automatically rolls all their access and disables it. It's like, okay, let's go ahead and disable an account, disable my account. You gave me one for read only, disable it. And then like 2 minutes later, like, see if you can access things. You'd be surprised. You can. Oh, that control that you told me worked, it doesn't. Because in the interview, they're going to say, oh yeah, that's how we do it. It works like a gem here. It's like, okay, let's test it. And then like, it doesn't, right? Or give me another one is like, okay, so you end access when someone's terminated. Give me your last 10 employees that left the company, voluntarily or involuntarily. Show me their access. And the ones who got fired are absolutely going to have no access, right? And sometimes you'll find that ones that, someone forgot to do it or they quit and, the manager was on vacation so no one got to HR. It happens, but it's a gap, right? It's a big problem. Okay, so there's the 3 phases. I want you to be practical again. I started this talk kind of telling you like who the target audience is that could get the most value from this. I want you to be serious. So many hats, like a lot of people in smaller to mid-sized businesses are doing multiple jobs. All right, so you got to realize that who you're talking to, you might need them for many things. Also, because a lot of people wear many hats or they've been there a long time, even though they don't maybe work in IT or they don't do this job, they know where the bodies are buried, right? And they can give you some really, really valuable information. So don't sleep on that. Small businesses are resource limited. Again, be empathetic, right? When they don't have things in place or they're doing it in a ramrod way. Like they actually want to be good. I remember I was doing an assessment for a small insurance company and I'm like, how do you do credential share, like shared accounts? Like where are the credentials? Like, because basically they would log into a bunch of different cloud accounts. I'm like, how's that work? And they're like, oh yeah, no, we use an Excel sheet and we have all the usernames and all the passwords. I'm like, what? And then they're like, yeah, no, it's great though because we keep it on the file server so everybody can get it. And I'm like, that's like terrible. What are you talking about? But I didn't say that. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like that's a massive risk. Like I don't think that's one of those ones where like I intervene immediately and I'm like, hey, this is a real big problem. You should like consider like maybe a password management solution, get that in there. And they did take action on that like almost immediately because it was so gross. But they're resource limited and they don't know any better, honestly, right? They're there to sell insurance. They're not there to cyber all the things. And then finally, again, empathy's huge. You're assessing the control, not the person, right? A lot of people try to do the best they can. A lot of people are trying to like stitch things together to achieve some goal that the business gave them. And if it's not in place, it can suck. So don't make it personal. Let them know that you're not there to assess them. You're there to understand what the current state of this control is because it introduces risk. Most people want to do the right thing and they want the business to be secure. So let them know that it has nothing to do with them specifically. It's about what the control is. You'll get better results too. Evidence collection best practices. Okay, this is another one of those slides that I think is one of those like, you wouldn't hear it in a classroom or a textbook, but this is like, I've done this a million times. Like I'm telling you, these are wicked valuable, okay? Be in the interview, okay? If you are like, they're like responding and like you're writing down or like you're reading the next question or like you think you understand what they're saying so you kind of like start thinking about the next thing. That doesn't help. It's really common for people to, miscommunication happens all the time. So if they say they do X, Y, and Z, maybe write it down and then say, okay, like I understand. So, and then maybe even read back what you just wrote them. Here's what I'm hearing you say, this, and this. Because a lot of times they'll be like, no, that's actually not right. That's not what we're doing. Or we only do it in this one spot, which is a qualifier. And you're like, oh, shit, okay. So be there, repeat to verify. Again, the reason you want to do this one, the lesson learned, is because if you go a week, 2 weeks later, and you're removed, kind of like what Evan was saying earlier about like when you're doing a lab and documenting it like in the moment and you know all the little nuances, you come back 2 weeks later, I'm sure you guys have done this, you like write a note or a phone number, and then 2 weeks later you're like, what the hell is this phone number? Like, who is this for, right? So that's why you want to do this, because you don't want to go back to them. I'm telling you, when you go back, it sucks. You look like a rookie, okay? Ask process, right? This is the key. Now, it's not tell me the process. This is where, like, the example is like, hey, when someone gets hired here, tell me how they get access to things, right? It's not like, because what they're going to say is like, oh, they'll come on, they'll get access to this, or if they move departments, we'll change their access when they get, like, it's more about like user access in that case. Or, hey, like when systems come on into your environment, like, tell me how they get stood up. Like, period, right? because you're going to uncover how it gets deployed, if networking gets involved, if baseline hardening configuration gets applied. Like, you'll get all of that, and they'll tell you all of that. So ask kind of like open-ended process-based questions, and the controls will just drop out of them. Another one, clear screenshots and photos. If you're taking screenshots, or sometimes you have to like use your phone to take a picture because it's like the admin's computer. Oh, that's another one I didn't write here. If the admin says, I'll take the screenshot and send it to you, sure, okay, you do that. I'm also gonna take a photo because like as soon as you leave, like you're not their priority anymore, okay? Make sure it's clear what you're taking a photo of. I can't tell you how many times I've gone back through my evidence folders, okay, safeguard 6.1, let's look, and then I'm looking at a screenshot, I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I'm trying to like piece it together. It's a pain. Again, I'm more about time, okay? And then, yeah, objective language, right? So this is more like when you're trying to understand what these things are, you want to make sure that the evidence that you're looking at, the screenshot, the results from a data dump or whatever, that they are directly related to the objective that you're trying to achieve. Anything else is superfluous and will cause you to get confused later on. All right, if you have to, this does happen. Hey, tell me X, Y, and Z. Oh, that's this system. I don't have it now, but I'll get it for you, right? You're not going to derail the interview and be like, all right, let's put a pause and you go get it. Like, that's not going to work. They'll say they get it for you. Document it in your spreadsheet or on your audit script sheet. You know, hey, Lisa Loeb said she's going to get me this document. And then I usually use a highlighter to highlight those a certain color. At the end of the day, I go through and find all the green highlighted ones, and then I send the email. Hey, Lisa, thanks for meeting today. You agreed to send me X, Y, and Z, and CC whoever like the boss is or the management, right? Follow up on those things, or you will find yourself later on wondering why you didn't have any evidence. Initial out brief, I'll explain this in a hot minute. It's important. I think I have a slide for it. You want to talk to whoever asked you to do this or whoever's in charge of InfoSec or IT about your initial out brief before you actually, I'm sorry, I'm getting this confused with something else. This is just that like end of the thing, like here's the wins, here's the losses. I'm going to go do deeper analysis, okay? And then, yeah, strengths and weaknesses. So now that you've completed like your assessment, you've collected your data, you're good to go. Now let's do some reporting and follow up, okay? This is a great outline. You can steal this if you want. You can make your own. I find it good. The whole point here is that whoever's in charge of the business, they're only going to read this right here. So that's for them. This is for you and for whoever is going to read this and for the IT team who's going to have to implement these things and understand what the gaps are. That's the two audiences that you want here. Again, it's not really part of an assessment, but I like doing it personally, giving them like quick wins and then long-term wins, right? You want to help them be better quicker, okay? Obviously, you want to, like, for the parts that are designed for non-technical people, the executive summary, right? Use their language, okay? This is like a common thread, trend that's been beaten into everybody here, but don't speak, like, they don't care about 0 days and shit like that. They care about money, right? So explain it to them there. Speak their language, all right? Now, this right here is another, like, I guess, pro tip, if you will. When you're doing your prioritization, like they could have like 50 things wrong. You're only going to put 2 or 3 in the executive summary, the worst ones. Because if you overwhelm them, they're not going to do anything. The worst ones, you might believe that the worst ones are these 3, but whoever's in charge, the IT director, whoever, they might actually think like, you know, these 2 are important, but they've had this one problem that they cannot get moved over the finish line. Business won't listen to them. They've been, screaming about it. You get that information from them, and it'll probably be a legit finding, and then you include that as one of your priorities, okay? This is gonna build, so this is the head business person, and this is you, okay? Great ponytail, right? So this is gonna build a relationship, right? Because you're helping them champion their causes. And I'm sure a lot of us here have done this, right? You have said like, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, and you get nothing. And then someone comes from outside and says, this is a problem. They're like, holy shit, this is a problem. We gotta get this fixed, right? So that's how you win hearts and minds, right? Okay, this is unfortunately a reality. Pen testers probably deal with this all the time. You could tell them like, oh, you like that Excel password sheet I told you about. Now they did get a password vault, but if I say, hey, listen, there's a major problem. Here's 3 options for enterprise password management solution. Here's all the tooling to do it. It's super easy. Go for it. And they're like, no, that's great, thanks. And they throw it in the trash. Do not take it personal, okay? Don't take it personal. You're trying to help. You're trying to do your thing. Sometimes people don't want to be helped, okay? And that might be an indicator if it's an internal assessment and like your management doesn't care, you might be swimming upstream. And, but don't take it personal, okay? It's important. So as far as the audit report, again, you want it to be like nice and comprehensive like I showed you. I actually had the Secretary of State Oregon Audits Division. It's hard to find a risk assessment that's publicly available because there's a lot of like nasty business in there. That's why it's hard to like, you know, get internships and stuff like doing this thing because you're basically revealing all the gross. Because this is a state entity and apparently that's how they do it in Oregon, this is public. So again, it's a couple years old, so they've probably fixed the problem since then. But if you're looking for like a legit, robust example, this is a good one. And if we have a minute, I'll show you. I don't even know how much time I have. No, I don't. But there's a link to it. All right, I'll send it to you. And spoiler, it looks a lot like, not exactly, but it looks like a lot like that outline I provided to you. So in conclusion, CIS 18 IG1, it's the baby, okay? It's the new bike with the training wheels and it's got the flares off the side and like you know there's like the remember the things you'd put on the spokes and they like slap down. I love those. Yeah, right. Going back, drink, right? I guess kids have electric bikes now. They don't fly. Yeah, audit prep is key, right? If you prep with that audit script, that document, if you ask for the evidence in advance and get familiar with what their environment looks like, if you figure out the org chart and who's over what and where, it will make your life a million times better, and that preparation will make you look like you are in control of the assessment, and it'll give you a lot of value, okay? The goal is to improve security, not to find people not doing their job. Your job isn't to be like, gotcha. Your job is like, hey, listen, there's some serious problems here. I know how we can help. Let's move it. And then, hey, 6 months, 12 months from now, let's do it again. Let's see how we're improving. And then you can start capturing scores and then measuring and starting getting like a real information security program showing trend lines and stuff. All right, so if you want to connect with me, you can go here. That's where all the things are. You can get my deck, all the content I do. I do a daily brief. We did it here downstairs the last 2 days. And then obviously I love GRC, so I have a class about it. But that's basically it. I hope you got some value. If we have time, I'll answer a couple questions. I hear the music going loud in there, but yeah, that's it. So thank you for your time. I hope this brought some value, and I hope you can use it. That's what I really want. Thank you. It looks like we have one question in the back.
So for this workflow, how well does that translate to running maybe multiple assessments at a time outside of like dedicated project tracking?
Yeah, so the question was, for this workflow, if you wanted to run multiple assessments in parallel, like he said for product lines, but like maybe business units, right? What I would say is there's gonna be a lot of overlap for things like user access, right? You're gonna have some type of like, you know, Active Directory or something like that, but then the individual business processes will be different from there. So if you're gonna run parallel, run them, but just know that you're not gonna wanna interview Lisa Loeb about the same, you know, user access stuff every single time. Now, when it comes to like certain applications or certain, you know, like, oh, we have this ERP solution, the app team runs that. Then you'd want to schedule a specialized meeting for how does access to the application go, because that wouldn't be handled typically at AD, or I mean, it's depending on the size of the business. So run it, keep really organized evidence, because if you're gonna run an audit, you can go to your evidence. Remember earlier I said previous audit scripts, like, or audit evidence, like that can be reused. And then when you're in the interview, you're like, hey, before we get started, I actually reviewed this. This is how we believe that access is being done or patching is being done. Is this accurate for your business unit? Yeah, we do. That's exactly what we do. Cool. Like, let's save everybody time and move on to the next one. So that's definitely the way to do it. Great question. Thank you.
It looks like we have a couple of questions from Discord. The first one is, how do you handle addressing and assessing the breadth of a controls implementation across multiple asset classes, systems, et cetera?
How do you measure what?
Addressing and assessing the breadth of a controls implementation across multiple asset classes, systems, et cetera.
Yep. So the question was, how do you measure a control if it's really good in one place and absolutely crap in another one? I'll give you an example. Endpoints. You can't log into your laptop without a password, and if you're off the network, you get challenged or MFA or whatever. But like all the networks just have like one account network devices have one account you remote log into or something like that. So what you have to do is that's where you get into scoping and scoping boundaries, and then being mindful, like, okay, listen, we're going to look at workstations or servers, and we're going to look at networking devices and measure that. So keep them separated. Don't treat it as like kind of a generic one-stop shop for things like that or patching and whatnot. Hopefully that helps. Another one?
I think the other one was about role-playing games.
Oh, that was from my talk.
Oh yeah, that's our previous talk. All right, yeah, you can definitely, if you want to continue the conversation, I love GRC, I love cybersecurity, and I love helping people. So like, if anything gets you excited about that, come talk to me. And like, this is all my socials. So like, if you can't find me by going there, I don't know what to tell you. All right, thanks everybody, appreciate it.